Your reading glasses.
No, I'll get it, babe. Just gonna say something.
Hello there. Welcome to our year in review. This is your girl Valerie Mason Chase and
It's the Cookie Man.
The Cookie Man. It's so ironic that when I was here alone a couple of weeks ago, and I was saying that the Cookie Man was sick and I had such a strong constitution. Well, guess what? I had to eat every one of those words because a couple of days later, I got sick as a dog and I have been sick ever since. I'm coming to the tail end of it now. I'm just starting to get my voice back. But anywho, for those of you who are watching now, whether you're watching live or later, thank you.
Thank you.
I encourage you to do what, babe?
Subscribe.
Yes.
I don't like.
Yes.
I don't know.
Share. Like, subscribe, and share. Like, subscribe, and share.
Like, subscribe.
So we're going to just go over some of the topics that we discussed this year. Obviously, we can't cover them all because there was a lot of things that we talked about, but we're going to talk about some of them. And there are a couple that were my favorites. I don't know if Cookie Man, if you have any particular favorites, but when we get to the ones that were my favorites, I'll talk about it. Also, towards the end, we're going to discuss a little bit about what our plans are for next year. I'm not going to give a lot of detail, but we'll talk a little bit about that when we get towards the end. So the first subject that we want to review is when we talked about the what, baby?
S word?
S word.
Not sex.
Not sex. We talked about submission and what that looks like in a relationship, and particularly in a marriage, because I'm not so sure if the two people are not married, if that really comes into play. I'm not sure. What are your thoughts on that, Frank?
I would kind of agree. When you say marriage, there's more of a expectation, a law of more of a commitment.
Yeah.
When you look at the word marriage, as opposed to I'm dating someone or
even shacking up,
right? Or I'm in a relationship. So that word submission probably has more of a stronghold in a marriage than really relationships.
Yeah, and what that looks like. Hey, Nicole. So good to see you. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you. Yeah. So, what does that look like? Well, typically we talk about, hey, Bakim. Hey, Bakim.
Oh, wow, Bakim.
Thanks for watching, baby. Typically, when you hear the word submission, you think about it applying really to the woman, and in terms of following the lead of her husband. But what I just said, the Cookie Man And one of my favorite sayings is, you can't follow a parked car.
Right.
So the assumption is that when submission is taking place, it is because the husband is fulfilling his role and he is actually leading the family, or if there are no children yet, leading the wife. So submission, that's really what it comes down to. What are your thoughts, babe?
And that can be such a hard thing to do for
some women.
Right. I was finding a nice way to say that for women to submit to the will of, is the word the will? Or
the leading.
Okay, the leading of their husband when they have a strong personality themselves.
That's very true. That's very, very true. And, you know, there's been a lot of talk on, because I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube, and there's a lot of talk about traditional wives, traditional husbands, and traditional roles, and that sort of thing. So if you are in a marriage where there's going to be that quote unquote traditional role that you're going to follow, hey, Jack, then submission would come into play. But again, the question is, how submissive can a wife be if the husband is not fulfilling his role? It's kind of like the chicken and the egg sort of thing. If I'm going to submit to you, what am I going to submit under? Because if you look at the word sub, meaning under, and mission, meaning mission, submission. So what is the mission that you have for us as a couple or us as a family? If you ain't got none, I can't get underneath it.
And you know what? You know, it's hearing that, and I kind of smile because I'm thinking about when we first got married. First of all, I know nothing about submission in a marriage. I thought my job was to just go to work, come home, be responsible, help out. You know, what that might have looked like, washing dishes.
But that's the traditional role.
Okay.
Being the provider, being the protector.
Yeah, but there was no, and you, like you said, there was no I was thinking, I'm starting to say there was no mission. My mission was like to work, come help you with the laundry or whatever I would help you with around the house. That was it. I didn't have no idea.
Well, honey, we were young. We were in our 20s. We didn't know nothing about having a vision or a mission for the family. But essentially, we talked about that. So if you haven't seen that, you could go back and watch that. That was, I think, in early January. But if you're on our page, if you're on the YouTube channel page, I think that's the right way to say it. You could certainly find that. It's called The S Word. That was the name of that particular podcast. Then we talked about single parenthood, and that's a hot button topic. We had our niece Simone Michelle Odom, and we also had a gentleman by the name of Guy Powell, who has a YouTube channel that focuses on missing fathers. So I think that was a very, very good podcast, because Simone was very open and very transparent about what single motherhood looks like, particularly some of the challenges that she faces as a single mother. Remember that one?
I remember that, and I, just quickly I flashback. My mother was a single parent, and I know how difficult, especially raising any children single, but when you're raising a male child, in my opinion, it's really difficult, because even the mother tries to do the best she can, but she's not a man. Then you got a young kid growing up, a young male, running the streets and not wanting to listen. It could be it was very difficult for my mother, for any mother.
I think it is still for single mothers, especially as you said, mothers.
Or even you keep saying mothers, probably difficult for single fathers.
Yeah, but the topic was. Well, it was single parenthood. Right. You're right. Single fathers, I'm sure.
Right. Excuse me, brothers. That's right.
You know something? You're absolutely right, because we do talk a lot about single mothers, but we don't talk much about single fathers, and they are out there.
That's right.
I think that may be something that we need to focus on for our next year. I'm going to write that down, because we need to talk about that.
That's right. Sure.
Yeah, because sometimes fathers who are not married to the mothers of their children get a bad rap. Okay, they're not all. Oh, hey, Lauren, how you doing? You said you don't know that feeling.
She said Lord,
do you know that feeling? Don't you know that feeling? Absolutely. So yeah, I think we will have a podcast to focus on single fatherhood.
Get the brothers out there.
Get the brothers out there,
right.
yeah.
Give them some love.
But with the single mothers raising a male child, it's difficult because as much as a woman tries and as much as she does, there's certain things that only a man can teach another young man coming into his adult manhood.
Sure.
I mean, women try and do the best, and most do a phenomenal job.
Absolutely.
But single parenthood, it's not easy. So that, I think, was in February when we had that podcast on. But again, if you didn't see it, you can always go back and look through the live broadcast that we've had. And that one was entitled Single Parenthood. Then we had one that was entitled All About Abuse. And this was one of my favorite topics. We had two amazing women on there. We had the wife of your best friend, one of your best friends, Monica Moore Stewart. She has an amazing organization called Purple Patches. She is a staunch advocate for women who have been abused. She recently had a fundraiser back in October to raise funds for her organization. She provides helps them with resources. She helps them find their way out. She's just an overall support for women who are in and have been in abusive relationships. And we also had one of my colleagues, Danielle Jean-Pierre, who is a counselor, and she has her counseling business is Transitions LLC, and she is in New Jersey. What did Nicole say? Single dads. Oh yeah. Yes.
Childhood friends.
Yeah, Nicole, we're definitely going to focus on that next year. So on that, I'm going to put up this number because we did show this when we did that podcast on abuse, and we talked about all forms of abuse, not just physical, emotional, financial, sexual, mental abuse, all types of abuse. And these two women were absolutely amazing during that broadcast. And I'm putting this number up because either you or someone you know may need that number. And it's the abuse hotline to call to seek help. That is a great resource. You can even go online and look for resources. But I like that particular podcast because it gave women, and I know there are men in abusive relationships as well, but it gave women some tools and ideas and guidelines if they are in an abusive relationship. You know, we talked about developing a safety plan, and making sure that you have a go bag somewhere. I talked about having a trusted friend. Monica said, don't trust anybody and have your go bag, even if you got to put it somewhere in a cemetery. But to make sure that you do have a safety plan in place if you are going to, if you decide that you are going to leave that abusive relationship. Because one of the things you have to be careful of, and the statistics say that when a woman first leaves an abusive relationship is the most dangerous time. When a woman first leaves, so you have to be really careful. I'm sorry. No, did I hit your toe, babe? No, that was me. Toe. And I remember, I think might have been back in 2014. A colleague of mine had left an abusive relationship, and she ended up being murdered by her husband. I think you remember that. Yeah. He murdered her, and then he ended up killing himself. And that was shortly after she had left. So again, if you haven't seen that podcast, it was entitled All About Abuse. So if you need it, or if someone you know needs it, please share that with them. And if they are in an abusive relationship, share it with them on the down low, in a manner that is going to be safe for them. Because you don't want in the midst of helping the person to put them more in danger.
Correct.
So that was all about abuse. Oh, yes. E. Nicole said, yeah, it was May 2014. Yeah.
Okay.
And, okay. I don't know if you want to share anything about that, Nicole, but yeah, Nicole, because Nicole and I had just started working together at the Philadelphia VA when that happened, even though we had met years prior. Then we did a podcast on husbands and wives as co-pastors. And I chose that as a subject because within the Christian community, there's a division in terms of there's a group on one side who says that women should absolutely, positively, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, be pastors because they shouldn't be over men. And then there's another group, and that's the group I'm a part of, that says it's perfectly fine for a woman to be pastors. And on that episode, we had Pastors Arnell and Dr. Danita Thompson. Dr. Danita is also my counseling supervisor, and she runs Mending Hearts Family Counseling, and her and her husband, Pastor Arnell, were pastors. They were co-pastors, and we had them on, and they talked about co-pastoring and what they had experienced going into pastoring together. And they also provided some biblical support for their position, which is that it's perfectly okay that you are not biblically out of pocket for a woman to be a pastor. So that podcast was entitled Husbands and Wives as Co-Pastors. Husbands and Wives as Co-Pastors. So what was the next one, babe, that we did?
Number 5, dating during the pandemic. And this one, we had some friends of ours who were guests. We had Nicole, who was online right now. We had
Jackie Finch.
No, Nicole, that's Young. Nicole Brown Young. Is that her too?
Yeah, that's the whole full name.
I'm sorry, Nick.
E. Nicole Brown Young.
We had a Jackie Finch.
Yeah.
We had Melvin McCain, my brother from another mother. I've known Melvin since I was 5 years old. Another long friend of mine, high school buddy, Bow-Legged Lou.
Hey, Elaine.
Force.
Let me get a shout out to Elaine. Hey, Elaine. Thank you so much for tuning in. So, yeah.
Now this thing, it started now. The topic, again, was dating during the pandemic. Right. And we know what the pandemic brought, how it kind of isolated everyone. But this became kind of one of my favorites because it became kind of funny. We even had Melvin trying to date while we were doing the podcast, trying to pick up one of the guests. So and then we had my friend Lucian, who was constantly the comic all his life. So it became kind of comedic during the time we were talking.
Yeah, and I wanted to have this topic on because dating changed during the pandemic. Yeah. People had to modify how they were dating. Now, if you were already married and in a committed relationship, it's a no-brainer. Right. You're going to be with your spouse or your significant other. Well, hopefully.
Well, you know what I'm kind of rock, because like you said, dating changed whether you were single or even married, because you're home now. When you mention your spouse,
a
lot of people, you're up under your spouse all the time, as opposed to when you had a chance to go to work and you kind of missed them. So it might have got hard for some people to wake up.
Actually, it did. There have been noted many pandemic divorces. Okay. Because couples who prior were out in the workforce. Now during the pandemic, they were home together, spending all their time together, and they got on each other's last nerve.
That's why I ain't ready to retire, babe. Let me keep working, babe, so we don't have no problem. Let me keep going to work, okay?
Oh, my Lord. No, you're going to retire next year. You're going to retire next year. That's the plan. So, yeah, that became very challenging. But even more so for singles who were out there in the dating pool, because now there's no place to go. Everything is shut down. So now how do you date? Are you going to do it just all online? But how I'm wondering, how well can you really get to know someone if it's just all virtual? or FaceTime.
And I'm hopefully sometime there'll be a statistic to see how it was really impacted. How many babies were born during that 2-year period?
Oh, probably a lot. Because some of them nerves they got on was like what the nerves Dr. Levon was talking about. Remember? We're going to talk about her in a little bit. But yeah, that was one of our subjects, and it was entitled "Dating During the Pandemic." Dating during the pandemic. So if you missed that, if you want to watch it, of course you can go back and look on the page, look under the lives, and you could find that dating during the pandemic, because the ways in which people dated, singles and marrieds, had to change.
I mean,
movies was closed, restaurants was closed,
it changed everything.
Musical venues were closed, stadiums were closed, everything was closed. So that's when people had to be creative. If you were not creative, you were just bored out of your mind. Okay, because there's only so much Netflix you can watch.
Yeah, that pandemic ushered in a lot of things that were probably on a lot of people's back burners. In terms of Uber, all kind of stuff, food coming along. I'm sure food deliveries will always happen. But it
increased exponentially.
Yeah, of course, Amazon type things started happening to a greater extent. It impacted a lot of things.
E. Nicole said she really enjoyed participating on that topic, but it's still hard to date. Yeah, I get it, Nicole. I get it. And that's something we're going to talk about next year. We're going to talk some more about that as well, about the whole dating thing. Okay. So next one topic that we're going to talk about that we did was what? Oh, Frank just wrote something. Yeah. So just FYI, Nicole, at our vow renewal, you had a secret admirer. I'll call or either text you later, Nick, and tell you about it. I'm not going to say it on the air, but you had a secret admirer. Okay. So one of the other things we talked about is how a man is to lead, cover, and disciple his family. Now, this right here was definitely one of my favorites that we did. And we had my spiritual parents on there, pastors, let me rephrase that, Bishop John Edmondson and his beautiful wife, Pastor Aisha Edmondson. And Bishop always refers to her as his Victoria's Secret model. Okay. I love, first of all, I love them. I love them. And I love their ministry. They are pastors of, help a sister out, Nicole said.
Sorry, go ahead.
So they are pastors of Victory in Christ Christian Center in Westville, New Jersey. Victory in Christ Christian Center in Westville, New Jersey. That's Bishop John Edmondson and Pastor Aisha Edmondson. I loved this podcast that we did. And because Bishop John talked about, he says that there are 10 men in every man. In essence, what he was referring to are the characteristics or the things that God has put in every man that he should walk in and carry out in his role as a husband and a father. Phenomenal. And Bishop John's book, hold on, I think I made a banner for that. Yes, that's the title of Bishop John's book. I highly, 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 highly recommend it. If you are a wife, get it for yourself and your husband. Husbands, get it for yourself. Single men, get it for yourself. The title of the book is Fatherhood, The Missing Link. And the author is none other than one of my spiritual fathers, Bishop John Edmondson of Victory in Christ Christian Center in Westville, New Jersey. So here are the 10 things that Bishop John says God has put in every man. Now, you may not see all of these in every man, but that doesn't mean that it's not there. Okay? Because Bishop John was very clear to say, oh yeah, Jackie, you like that topic too? Of how a man is to lead, cover, and disciple his family. Hold on one second. I'm going to take that banner down. and get back to the comments. So here's the 10 things.
Okay.
The first thing he said, Lovey, is what? The
Source.
number one.
Source.
And
everything flows from him.
Right. The man is a source because everything flows from him. Bishop John also said that a man is to be a sustainer, meaning that he should be able to sustain everything that's under his leadership, whether that's his wife, his children, if he's got a business, whatever it is. He should be able to sustain everything under his leadership. So, number 3, Lovey, what did he say?
Protector, meaning protects what has been assigned to him.
Yes, that's the third thing. Bishop John says that a husband is. A man is. Let me rephrase that. A man is. Bishop John says it has these 10 things that God has put inside of him. And Lovey said number 3 was a protector. Protect everything that's assigned to him. Protect it. And the 4th thing is he is a leader. And he's talking about servant-based leadership. Leading by example in the things of God. Okay? Leading by example and being a servant leader. That means that you just don't lord it over people just because you are the leader. Okay? You don't lord it over them like you the grand poobah, but you are a servant. You also serve those because the best leaders are also great servants. They know how to follow and serve those who are following them. And what else, babe?
Number 5, teacher.
A man is to be a teacher on whatever level. And that doesn't mean like you're teaching in school or you're teaching Sunday school. No. But you have knowledge, you have wisdom that you impart within the family to your wife, your children, your grandchildren. You are a teacher. Also, number 6.
Excuse me.
Go ahead,
can
baby.
A teacher be done by example?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Who was it? I don't know which one of my spiritual fathers said this. Whether it was Bishop John or Pastor Daniels said that more is caught than is taught. I don't know which of them said that. So I don't want to misquote and give the quote to the wrong
what do you mean by caught?
Spiritual father.
What do you mean caught?
By example. That's just what you said.
Okay.
Because they see what you do rather than you telling them. They see what you do. And that is leading by example. He also said that a man is disciplinarian. He's a disciplinarian in the household.
And that don't necessarily mean you walk around knocking everybody out.
No. It doesn't mean that is corporal punishment at all, because there are other ways to discipline in the home. And that means to discipline the children, not your wife.
Why? She don't need discipline? That's what I was talking about, knocking out. That's the kids.
No, you don't discipline your woman. You discipline the children. Okay? He also said that number 7, the man is to be a progenitor. And what that means is he is to establish and impact other generations. Establish and impact other generations. So that is a progenitor. Number 8, babe, what did he say?
Upholder. Meaning upholds those things around him.
Upholds whatever is around him. Yeah, Nicole, you caught that, right? Talk about discipline. Homie, don't play that. Number 9 is the man is to be a caretaker. He's to be take care of whatever has been assigned to him. And number 10,
cultivator, makes everything around him better.
Make everything better, not worse. Make everything better. The marriage better, the home better, the children better, the overall environment better. So that's what Pastor Bishop John was talking about. Go ahead, babe.
So, as you said earlier, a lot of times we don't see these things.
You don't see them. Yeah.
Until such times that something happens in a relationship and you have to recover from the relationship. And some of these things now come out because the man has changed his way of thinking and changed his way of doing.
Right. Absolutely. But according to Bishop John. And again, the title of his book is Fatherhood, the Missing Link. Fatherhood, the Missing Link. All 10 of these things are in the man.
I know, sure, I understand.
Whether or not they come out of the man is another story entirely. I think it's easier to have these things come out of the man, because we talked about submission earlier. And as a wife is submitted to the husband is to submit to God and to the leadership of God. And as a man does that, it's much easier to have these 10 things come out. Okay. What else did we, what other subject did we talk about?
How social media impacts relationships.
Yes, we talked about, and I think that one was entitled The Impact of Social Media on Relationships. Okay. And that's something that when we first got married, we had to talk about. It wasn't a thing.
No, of course not. There was no Facebook, at least not that I'm aware of, or TikTok and all that other stuff.
Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat and all that sort of thing. But couples do have to talk about it now. How? Because social media can negatively, it has the potential to negatively impact relationships. There have been a lot of social media affairs because people are on and they see some old friend or an old girlfriend and they reconnect on social media. A couple has to decide, what are the boundaries regarding social media in terms of posting? If you are in a relationship, let's say you're not married, are you going to post that you are in a relationship? Are you going to post pictures of your significant other? What is that going to look like? Commenting or liking provocative pictures. You got to talk about that. What's acceptable? What's not acceptable? What are your thoughts on that, babe?
I agree, because I remember, there were several times that I might focus on liking stuff. And I'm not talking about nothing in the program, just liking a comment or liking someone's birthday. And I remember sometimes we would talk, when you talk about how it impacts a relationship, where, you might say, well, honey, you didn't, how come you don't like my stuff?
Or my birthday.
The bottom line, the bottom line is this: you wanted the world to know you existed on my pages and stuff like that. And you know what? It's something that, because I knew there were a lot of things out there that you might have put out there that showed we existed. I didn't think nothing of it until we had the conversation. And even if I really still didn't understand, the thing about it was I had to realize it was important to you. So I had to change how I might have navigated this social media thing. Because at one point I didn't care nothing about it. Then I got the hang of it.
Now he's on Facebook more than me. Okay, I'm not on there.
Be reading and following stuff, but still, there's something to talk about. And in my case, as long as there's transparency and you can see what I'm posting, I'm good. Even though there might be something that comes up. Well, who's this? Okay, you got to be willing to talk about it.
Absolutely. And I do believe in transparency. And we did have to have that conversation, because I'm looking at his page and his profile picture and his I call it the background picture. I don't know if that's the right name for it. Was just him. What the hell?
Yeah, but see,
you got a whole wife. You got 3 children. You got 4 grandchildren, and they're not on the profile or the thing. I was really more concerned about me showing up on there.
Yeah, but see, I looked at it this way. That was my Facebook page, so to speak. So
and
why
I am
can't
your
I know,
wife.
But wait a minute. So why can't we call it the background picture, just be about me in a particular chilling pose, because it's mine, and I can talk about you later on.
Well, because sometimes that profile picture and the background picture is all that someone sees, and you look single there as opposed to a married person.
But it says married in the bio or stuff like that.
Some people don't even bother to read that.
Well, it ain't my fault.
And that's why I believe if you are in a committed relationship, you're married, present yourself as such, because that won't alleviate everything.
Right, correct.
But it has the potential to alleviate some things. Okay? But anywho, that is a conversation that couples need to have. And that we talked about impact of social media on relationships. That was that topic.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I think this was that one of your favorites?
Which one? To stay or go after infidelity?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about it. A favorite,
I thought you said that was one of your favorites.
I might have said that off camera, but I don't know if it was my favorite.
Mercy. So you didn't tell me a while ago.
I mean, I did, but I have changed of heart now.
You changed your mind. Okay.
I obviously to stay and go after infidelity. That's such a difficult thing.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I mean, you have to make that decision for yourself.
Right.
Because you might have to leave for your own emotional well-being. Mm-hmm. For this saneness of your mind. And that doesn't mean y'all might not come back, hence look at us.
Right.
But you still might need to step away from the situation.
True, very true. And whether or not you stay after infidelity, it really depends, okay? Now, can a marriage survive infidelity? Absolutely. We are perfect examples. But there are certain things that must take place. Mm. If you make the decision to stay in a relationship or resume a relationship after infidelity, you must be willing to do the work. If you're not willing to do the work, don't bother, because then it's just going to be more hell, going to be pure hell. And there's work for the person who had the affair. There's work for the unfaithful partner, and there's work for the betrayed partner, because sometimes the betrayed partner thinks that they don't have to do no work, that everything is all on the unfaithful person, and that's not so. But there's work to do. I strongly encourage get help with navigating some of this stuff. But there are certain things that make it easier to maintain a healthy, happy relationship after an affair if you do decide to stay together. Okay. So that podcast was called To Stay or Go After Infidelity. To Stay or Go After Infidelity. And if you're facing that, or if someone you know is facing that, by all means, share that with them. Direct them to the podcast, the YouTube page, I think it's YouTube page, right? YouTube channel, Marriage Beyond the Breach, and it's Marriage Beyond the Breach. One of my other favorites, Let's Talk About Sex with Reverend Dr. LaVon Shaw. Listen, Reverend Dr. LaVon Shaw, I love her. And I think she was absolutely phenomenal on that podcast. What are your thoughts, babe?
I don't remember much of it, quite frankly.
No, I'm just kidding. You know what? I'm going to hurt him.
Yeah, it was revealing and no holds barred. So, yeah. And which a lot of times there are things we just don't talk about. Right. We assume the other person knows something. Right. And that's a detriment. That can be a detriment to a couple. And listen, that's a detriment to sexual intimacy. Because if you don't talk about it, listen, if I don't let him know what I like and what feels good, he gonna keep on doing what I don't like and what don't feel good, and vice versa. Okay. And there's ways to have that conversation. What you like and what you don't like, right, babe? Yeah. And what has to happen if you're gonna get what you like? This is true. This is true.
We're laughing because that's a private joke. Okay, we're not gonna share it on the air, but you do have to have the conversation. Right. This is what I like. Okay, and if you find that what you like hasn't been happening for a while, say something about it. Okay, squeaky wheel gets the oil. Open mouth get fed. Whatever saying you want. However you want to phrase it, eat crazy. But the thing is, you have to have ongoing communication. And one thing that Dr. LaVon suggested, excuse me, and again, we're both getting over the flu, so I apologize.
That's something, yeah.
One of the things that Dr. LaVon suggested is that couples check in minimally every quarter. regarding their sexual intimacy. How are things? What's good? What's not good? What's working? What's not working? Nicole said we keep her in stitches. He crazy. He's great, Nicole. He's great.
And
go ahead, baby.
Especially as we men get older, we can't.
That's true.
We need to talk about things because obviously expectations aren't what they were when you were younger. And, a lot of times, I would have to talk to Val about how I was feeling about something and sometimes point out it wasn't about her.
Right.
It was about my mental point, where I was mentally, physically, and how I thought things should be happening and whatever the case is. So it's really important as you get older for us fellas to talk about things. Don't be embarrassed, because the more, like Val said, if I don't say anything,
we can't fix it.
Can't change it. Can't fix it.
But not only men as they get older, but also women, because some women, praise God, I don't have that problem, but some women have a lot of difficulty with vaginal dryness after menopause. They just don't lubricate like they used to. And if you don't talk about it or do something about it, and you continue to have sexual intercourse, it could be extremely painful. And when sex gets painful, you avoid it. You avoid it. And you don't want to avoid it because it's painful. Fix it. That's it. You can fix it. There's lubricants, there's certain creams, there's estrogen creams, a whole bunch of stuff that's out there. So, but the main thing is you want to keep those lines of communication open at all times. Now, this one was a hard one.
Yeah.
That was a hard one.
The impact of infidelity on
the impact of infidelity, and we had our children,
right, and my sister. And when Val started talking about putting this together and asking if I wanted to be part of it, I was all gung ho, didn't mind being in the camera. It didn't bother me. This was the only one that had me afraid.
Yeah, because when we initially talked about it, you said you didn't want to be on.
I didn't want to be part of it at all. I just, I would just, because of my behavior, I was concerned to hear some things that I hadn't heard.
Yeah.
And up to the last minute, I was not going to come on the camera.
That's
but
very true.
I realized that running from things again is not a way to fix something.
Absolutely.
So I present it.
And there are things that we need to face, both of us.
Yeah. Okay.
There are things that we need to face and be accountable for. Because here's the thing. We are not just to be accountable to each other, but also to our babies, because they live through all of that chaos with us. So we owe them. We absolutely owe them an audience to have them speak from their perspective what it was like living in the chaos that we created when they were growing up. It was hard. It was difficult to hear, but I so appreciate their candor and their transparency and their openness. And it turned out to be not as bad as I thought it was going to be. What about you?
Definitely. I thought I'd still be digging the dirt off of myself, trying to get out from under it. But
then again, Hammy wasn't on there.
Well, yeah.
It might have been different if Hammy had been on there.
That's my oldest son. We had 2 of our 3 children up here. But you know what? I mean, still, it might not have been as great, but throughout the years, there were times where me and Frank had those frank conversations about infidelity and things that was bothering him and our straightness and stuff. So, but but that pardon me.
When we were talking about it and planning for it, had both of us nervous and shaking in our boots.
I was like, no, Val.
And I didn't want to hide it.
I don't do it, Val. They're gonna bury me. Y'all, meaning her too, will talk about me so bad.
But I reassured him, no, it's not about him, because he did not create the chaos by himself. And that's one thing I have to keep reminding Frank about, because when we start talking about things like that from our past and growing up, the kids in the home and infidelity and whatnot, he feels like I have a finger pointed only at him, and nothing could be further from the truth, because we created the chaos together. That's why we are responsible for fixing it together.
Okay.
Dang, I just lost my train of thought. But one of the main reasons why I wanted to do that broadcast, for not just for us, for our benefit, but most of all for the benefit of others, particularly those who may currently be engaged in infidelity, or have been in the past, or are thinking about it, to help them see what some of the potential ramifications are, not just on the not just on the marriage, but on the family, because the children do see and witness and experience and are impacted by all of that stuff. So those are just some of the topics that we have covered throughout this year of 2022. There are a whole lot more. You can go, if you haven't already been, to the YouTube channel and look up under live, or under, I forget however they have it set up, and you can see all of the subjects that we have covered for this year, for 2022. And if there is a subject or topic that you would like for us to cover, you can put it right in the chat right now, or you can email it to me, Valerie@marriagebeyondthebreach.com. Valerie@marriagebeyondthebreach.com. If there's something that you would like for us to discuss, if there's something that you want to come on and talk about, contact me. Okay. So for 2023, we're going to change things up a little bit. I'm not divulging the specifics of it right now, but just be on the lookout. I think it's going to be absolutely great. It's going to be awesome. The changes that we are making for our Marriage Beyond the Breach podcast for 2023. I have some lists of subjects already that I think are going to be very impactful, that people are going to get a lot out of. So I want you to be on the lookout for that. We won't have any more podcasts for the remainder of this year, but we'll be back. Let me look at the calendar right quick. Probably the second Sunday in January. Yes, we'll be back on January 8th. We'll be back on January 8th. So today will be the last podcast for 2022, but January 8th, we will be back. And those of you who have been with us, I cannot thank you enough. It was with a lot of fear and trepidation that I started this YouTube channel. I was reluctant to do it. I was nervous about doing it. But I thank you for your support. Some of you have been very, very, very loyal supporters. Now, granted, we don't have a huge following. We got a very, very tiny YouTube following in terms of numbers, but I appreciate each and every one of you. I can't thank you enough. And I just solicit your continued support as we go forward into 2023. Again, be on the lookout. We'll be back on January 8th with an entirely new format. And I look forward to providing insight, information, encouragement, support, and whatever else. Babe, what do you got to say?
No, I just concur. Maybe I'll even get brave enough to do a couple of more
by yourself.
Yeah, individual sit downs.
I think that'll be good because the brothers need to hear from the brother about being a husband and being married. We hear all the time. I know I have heard many, many times that marriage is hard work, and how hard marriage is, and how difficult it is, and how challenging it is. It's work, but it's not drudgery kind of work. It has the potential to be
True that.
joyful work. Okay. And here's the thing that can make marriage so much easier is if each partner lets the other know what your needs are. Yes, she said, yeah, Frank, you got it. Know what your needs are. I must let Frank know what I need from him very clearly, very specifically, and he needs to do the same for me. Once that's done, if each person decides to meet the needs of the other, everybody's happy. Okay? So it doesn't have to be that difficult. It is as easy as communicating what your needs are and making a decision to meet the needs of your partner. You married them, you chose them, you said you're going to build a life with them. Remember those vows on your wedding day through for better or worse, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. Remember those vows and purpose in your heart to keep those vows. And I am a firm believer that when a couple, when we are committed to each other, when we are committed to our marriage, when we are committed to do the work, and when we have God in the midst, no marriage, no relationship is beyond redemption. No relationship is beyond redemption, no matter how difficult it may seem, no matter how hard it may seem, no matter how bad it may seem. No marriage is beyond redemption. E. Nicole said marriage is a blessing. Happily married people live longer. Yes, according to statistics, working together for a better, longer life. Absolutely, E. Nicole. Statistics do bear that out, that happily married people do live longer. So, again, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Enjoy your time with your family. Enjoy your family. Have some good food. Have some good laughs. And we'll see you next year in 2023. I love you guys. God bless you.